Well, let's go now to what's becoming apparent. We desperately need more gas, of course we do, but we've got to get it into the system and quickly to address our energy price crisis. Over the weekend and today, the Coalition have confirmed that if elected, they would immediately move to bolster gas supply.
We've certainly said that we will immediately, on coming to government, fast-track approvals for gas because it's the only way to bring prices down sustainably. Now, we can have subsidies and we're not going to stand in the way of Labor's subsidy. But the problem is it's a subsidy because of their failed policy.
Joining me now, energy and gas market analyst Saul Kavonik. Saul, a lot of speculation that this will be a centrepiece of the response from Peter Dutton to the budget on Thursday night. They've not gone into detail about what sort of red tape they'd like to remove, but there's been a number of MPs briefing anonymously the Australian Financial Review today. They say that this will entail relaxing Labor's safeguard mechanism. Now, if that's the case, what sort of difference will that make?
Thanks, Peter. I think it's important to make a distinguish between relaxing the safeguard and also a much bigger deregulatory program, particularly regarding approvals. With regard to safeguard, most of the policies that Chris Bowen has put out since Labor was elected has been an exercise in rushed ineptitude. Safeguard's actually exceptions, probably the only policy he put through which actually went through a normal kind of departmental process. The issue then is they had to make some accommodations to the Greens in order to get it through. And what that saw is it particularly impacts manufacturing. It's not just about the hindrances we're seeing in energy and gas supply costs into manufacturing, but Safeguard has actually rendered, like, for example, new manufacturing has to compete with completely unrealistic subsidised European carbon emission standards instead of just using, for example, an average. So just making Safeguard more pragmatic will actually help a lot of manufacturing jobs across the country, both to keep existing manufacturing going and also allow investment in new manufacturing plants. I think where the real benefit could be, though, in terms of improving cost of living and improving jobs is going to be on the approval side, where we've seen Labor stand on the hose and embolden activists to stop projects across the country.
Last year we saw, of course, the Coalition put gas in its capacity investment scheme. This is their clean energy policy flagship. They announced last week too that they would fast-track the approvals for the North West Shelf expansion. How do all the investors that you deal with read this in terms of the Coalition's attitude to our energy policy?
Well, I think the way the main investors are reading at things is they really just want to stop what we've seen under Labor, which is active hostility and attacking the sector. The reality is just that they see relief from a change of government in that we'll stop seeing active destruction of the core source of our energy security. We're talking about, Peter, approvals that used to take 2 months are now taking over 2 years, sometimes 4 years, sometimes 6 years to go ahead. There's issues with government funding lawfare against their government's own approvals, right? Now, beyond that, there's streamlining of approvals that we've seen from the Coalition, but also like gas in the capacity investment scheme. Gas is the best form of capacity, right? So the fact that it was excluded was an ideological problem that Chris Bowen had, again, accommodating the Greens, throwing blue-collar workers under the bus in the process. And he's actually delegated to the states, is basically saying, states, could you please put subsidised gas to then make our capacity investment scheme works? And what the Coalition is saying is, let's just be technology agnostic. Let's let whatever lower cost technology wins, which in many cases will be gas, because that will flow through to manufacturing, it'll flow through to our bills, it'll flow through to a lower cost of living.
All right, I'll leave it there. Saul, thank you. We'll watch with interest what comes out of the week.